may go no further. You will not enter Gondor.
Who are you to deny us passage?
Legolas, fire a warning shot past the bosun's ear.
Injury! Oh! That's it! Right! We warn you! Prepare to be boarded! Boarded? By you and whose army?
This army.
Any Lord of the Rings fans in the house? Yeah? Boy, we're killing it in this series, man. We had Matrix last week. We have Lord of the Rings. There's more coming, by the way. I've got more ideas than I have time for. So, yeah, if you're an epic movie fan, this is going to be a good series for you. Yeah, it's awesome. Well, listen, we are in the middle of a series called Supernatural, where we are talking a little bit about spiritual warfare, angels, demons, what's our role, how do we fight, where does our strength come from, what is involved with that, all of that kind of stuff. And I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you for your overwhelming response to this series. People are really kind of getting some help that they need in the middle of this, and that's really why we're doing this. Sometimes the church, we do a good job of certain things and talking about it. There's other things that we just don't talk about enough. And this is one of them. Spiritual warfare is one of those things. So I want to just thank you for that and encourage you to keep coming all the way to the end of this series. We're going to talk a little bit today about angels and demons and who they are and what they're all about and all that kind of stuff. And then the next 2 weeks, we're going to talk a little bit about, okay, how do we fight? How do we fight? So keep coming back. Bring friends, bring family, grab everybody you can. How do we fight is on deck after today. All right, I've got 2 scriptures for us to sort of key in on today. And the first is from the way back of the book. We're going to go to the book of Revelation. And I'm in chapter 12. This is verses 7 through 9. And John writes this. He says, "And there was war in heaven." Isn't that funny to think about the fact that there was a war in heaven? There's war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back. But he was not strong enough, and they lost their place in heaven. The great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil, or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth, and his angels with him. And then from Psalm 91:1, this is our encouragement about fighting the dragon. The psalmist says, "For he will command his angels concerning you." Somebody say, he commands his angels. He commands his angels concerning you to guard you in all of your ways. They will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. My message title that I've taken for today is, "And in this corner." And in this corner. Would you pray with me? Heavenly Father, as we come to the Rumble today, would you help us to understand a little bit about who's fighting who, about how we understand that and what our role is in it, and how that both helps us and how that needs to be something we need to maybe take a little more seriously in our lives. God, would you strengthen us for the battle and help us to remember that we are never, ever, ever alone. We pray these things in your name. In your name. Amen. Amen. Well, some of you have heard me tell this story before, but when I was in like 5th grade, there was a bully in my class named Michael Pierce. And Michael Pierce, 5th grade was a long time ago, so I don't mind naming him by name. And if you're watching, Michael, I hope you found Jesus by now, because it's been like 40 years. But I'm just saying. So, yeah, Michael Pierce was the bully in my grade. And Michael Pierce used to pick on me because I was real tall for my age. By the time I was 12 years old, no joke, I was 6'2" and 185 pounds as a 12-year-old. I walk in the room and people thought I was the teacher. It's true. It's actually true. So Michael kind of picked up on this, and he used to call me all kinds of names. You know, you big goon, you oaf, just all that kind of stuff. And the thing about Michael was that his bark was way worse than his bite, which is true for most bullies, by the way. But his bark was way louder than his bite. He had these he was just angry all the time. Just angry eyes. Everything's intense. And he was offended by absolutely everything. We'd go down to the cafeteria for lunch, and there'd be no chocolate milk. And Michael would just go off. What do you mean there's no chocolate milk? Just angry about the chocolate milk. Right? He's just angry about everything. And that was honestly the reason that nobody challenged him on anything. And it was the reason people were scared of him. It wasn't because he was some big, intimidating presence of a dude. It was because he was completely insane. And insane people are kind of scary, right? Because insane people, the way that insane people intimidate you is that they're unpredictable. And if you don't know what someone's going to do and they're angry all the time and, it gets a little like, okay, I'm just going to stand right over here, right? Keep your distance from these kinds of people. It's intimidating. So one day, Michael Pierce started talking all kinds of his usual mess with me. And he was calling me a goon, he's calling me a big oaf. And I'm cleaning up the language here a little bit and keeping it church appropriate, but you know what I'm talking about, right? He's kind of going into his thing on me, and I told him to stop, and he wouldn't, and he starts pushing me and bumping his shoulder into my shoulder, and he's kind of trying to daring me to fight him, just because that's what Michael Pierce did. That was just his shtick. So I went home, and I told my dad about it, and my dad said, listen, Seth, you can't start anything with him, okay? I don't want you to go out and hit something with him, and I absolutely don't want you to hit him. No hitting. But listen, if he does come up into your space and he's up on you like that again, you have my permission to shove him off of you as a defense, okay? Only as a defense. I said, okay. Next day, my dad got a call from the office at school. Reverend Hinrichs? Reverend Hinrichs, this is the principal at Seth's elementary school. Do you have a minute to talk about your son? Do you have just a second? Can I tell you something about being a pastor? You only get called Reverend when something's gone wrong. Okay? No, it's true. It's true. Most of the time, even for me, it's Pastor Seth or Pastor, something like that. If I'm getting called Reverend, it's because something terrible has happened. If that's the level of formality we're going to. My dad said, of course, what seems to be the issue. The principal said, well, it seems that Seth has had a little incident with a classmate of his, Michael Pierce. Do you know him? Do you know who he might be? Yeah, Michael Pierce was there. For some reason, Seth, what he did was he shoved Michael Pierce halfway across a classroom and into a wall. And then the funny part is he said that you said he could do it. Could you explain this to me, Reverend Hinrichs? Explain that. That day remains one of the greatest individual victories of my entire life. It's one of my favorite memories from like elementary school. It was almost 40 years ago, man. And that story, it just feels good to tell it, even now, all this time later. I still remember the shock on Michael Pierce's face when I was shoving him across that classroom. And by shove, I mean, I kind of put everything into it. I really did. I gave him everything that 6'2" frame could handle in the middle of that. But it was sort of like my Ralphie and Scut Farkas moment. You know what I mean? Where you just like snap and then go crazy, and then all of a sudden everything is right with the world. It's all good again. And it's all good. And you know, the funny part is Michael Pierce never bothered me again after that day. Not once. Didn't pick on me at all. And you know, it's funny because in some ways, because of my height, because of how tall I was an easy target for Michael back in those days. I was an easy target for him. I was always the nice kid in class. I was the kid that other moms would look at me, oh, that Seth is such a nice boy. He's a nice boy. Everybody likes Seth. How can you not like Seth? Michael knew that, and he knew that I was not only a giant, but he knew that I probably wasn't going to do anything to him along the way. Okay? He probably knew that I wasn't going to fight back. And now, what's funny about it is Michael has never met my father. Michael doesn't even know my father. But once I, in my mentality, understood that I had my Father's blessing, and I had my Father's favor, and I had my Father's endorsement in the fight, oh, now it's on like Donkey Kong, okay? Can I preach to you for just a minute? We're talking today about angels and demons. And listen, as we begin that conversation, one of the questions, and this is really, I want you to kind of keep this at the forefront of your mind as we're having this conversation this morning. The question I want you to kind of ask yourself is this: how many battles do you choose not to fight because you feel alone in them? Because you feel alone. How many battles in your life are you intimidated out of, or do you shy away from them, or you excuse yourself from, not because that relationship doesn't need healing, or that marriage doesn't need work, or because those kids aren't complicated, or because that addiction really is killing you, or because you're not running away from your problems? How much of you not fighting that battle has to do with the fact that you feel alone, and you feel outnumbered and intimidated and weak and kind of hopeless about it? Like, this is just going to be the way it always is. What I came to tell you this morning is that you have the hand of your Heavenly Father on the battles of your life. You do. The battle that you're in isn't just some kind of trivial, unseen thing that only you know about. Because, listen, all of us know this, right? When you come to church, I know that a lot of times we try to put on our Sunday best and we try to kind of get our face together and we get our hair together and we get all cleaned up and we get ourselves to the Lord's house. I understand how that goes, okay? I do it too. But here's what I can tell you. The people that you're sitting next to, they are fighting a battle that you know nothing about. And it's hard. And they're struggling. And they're tired, and they feel alone. And so what I came to tell you is that, number one, you're not alone in the battle. Number two, you have God's hand on your life as you fight. You have His endorsement. You have His pleasure at your right hand, and you have the right to defend yourself from the attacks that are coming on you. In fact, I think God, for some of you, is here to tell you this morning that I am waiting for you to say go so that we can get this fight going. It's time. It's time. You might be getting attacked, but God's commanding His angels, we're told in the Psalms. He's commanding His angels concerning you. The favor of God is sending spiritual reinforcements to your side. Your problems may not know your Father. Your problems maybe have never even met your Father. But your Father is so bent on protecting you and covering you and defending you and walking with you that He sends angels to help you in your fight. You're not fighting Michael Pierce by yourself, okay? You're just not. You have God's stamp of approval on your life to know that you're not alone. And you're going to get into this battle and find out that as you start pushing back and as you start fighting, you're going to have a power that you don't know where it even comes from. But it really is just the idea that your Father said that you should be in this battle with all of His forces and all of His angels, and that you should be fighting for the destiny that He's created for you because He fought for it Himself. He's got you covered in His protection. If you actually believe that, if you actually knew that, would that change anything about your life today? It might change something. You know, angels and demons, it's a funny thing in the church why we don't talk about this more. I don't know why that is, really. I think part of it is that it's just mysterious and weird and kind of goofy for people to try to understand, and it is, in a way. But this is a topic that, if we're just honest about this for a minute, some people get really weird about. Have you noticed that? Some people get really, really weird about angels and demons, and we don't really know what to do with them, especially when we read about them in the Bible. And just here's what I've noticed about how we handle them. I've noticed that we're much better at imagining the bad stuff than the good stuff. I've noticed that we're much better at imagining the negative and the fear and the intimidation and what's the bully going to do and just all that kind of stuff. And oh my gosh, we're much better at that than we are imagining that we're victorious and at peace and solid and secure and all of that kind of stuff. It's really, really difficult. It's much easier to believe the icky, scary stuff about demons than it is the good stuff about angels. It just really is. So here's what I've noticed happens. With the bad stuff, with demons, I mean, we'll make horror movies about this stuff. There are comic books about this stuff. There's all kinds of entertainment with demons in it and all kinds of stuff that is shockingly accurate biblically. It's unbelievable. And we do it at a level that, honestly, I don't even know that we understand what we're messing with. Like, I don't even understand that we understand what we're inviting. You know what I mean? Like, what are you inviting on yourself? It's hard to imagine. It's not hard to imagine what the bully looks like and be intimidated and scared of him. And the reason is that fear always tends to yell louder than hope in our minds. Have you noticed that? Always yells louder than hope. Even if it's not just getting scared through a horror movie or scared through a Bible passage that you read. I remember as a kid reading these books that were called This Present Darkness. Anybody ever read This Present Darkness? This was back a little bit now, but real popular books at the time that were all about spiritual warfare. I read these books as a kid. No joke, scared the crap out of me. It's scary. It's really scary. It's not hard to imagine what a demon is or what a demon does, and we see this all the time in popular culture. Now, angels, on the other hand, is a different story. Angels, we do one of two things with angels. We get so weird about this. We just go weird the other way, right? So with angels, the first thing we tend to do is we'll cartoonize them, right? You get the image in your mind where they're wearing white robes and they're playing harps and they're floating around in the blue sky over puffy clouds and through golden gates, singing songs while they're floating through rainbows like a bunch of sissies, right? That's kind of how we think about it. So that's one way to do it. The other way that we handle angels in our minds, just to even try to make any sense of it, is we Hallmarkize them. Do you know what I mean by that? We Hallmarkize them. We just make stuff up. And it sounds like something off a Hallmark card or something that you saw on the Hallmark channel or whatever. Or maybe you heard it on The View, you know? And it's like a mixture of what you heard on The View mixed with a little bit of Bible. And it becomes this weird spiritual milkshake. That's just strange. It has no basis at all in the Bible whatsoever, but we believe it, and we comfort ourselves with it, and we say it to other people. One of the most common things I hear whenever I do funerals, and you know where I'm going with this, don't you? Right? Whenever I do funerals, one of the most common things that I hear is somebody talking about how their grandma has now become an angel that's watching over them. You know what I mean? You heard people talk like that? You know? It's just so common. People think that when someone dies, that somehow they've sort of graduated to becoming an angel whose job is now to forever protect you. That's their eternal job. And listen, on the one hand, I get it. Okay? It's a way for people to imagine that the person who has passed is near and they're close, and you want to believe that the person isn't really gone, they're still with you. And if they're that close and they are still with me and they're watching over me, that removes some of the sting of the guilt or of the grief, right? It removes some of that grief and it removes some of that pain and that difficulty. There's something comforting about that, the idea that they're still here. But can I tell you the truth about it? Because I actually think that the truth is more comforting than that idea. That is not a biblical idea. It's just not. In fact, that thought has more in common with some Eastern religions about what happens to people after they die and the role that your ancestors have in your life moving forward. That's very Mulan, okay? The Disney movie Mulan, anybody, right? That's very, like, that's really what that is. That is not an idea that you're going to find in the Bible. And honestly, it's not even an idea that's really all that comforting when you stop and think about it. Is that really your idea of comfort? You think that our greatest hope after we die is that we can look forward to the idea of hovering around the earth and watching our kids and our kids' kids and their kids' and protecting them and guarding them and saving them from things? Is that your idea of what heaven is like or eternity is like? Listen, there aren't a lot of them, but there are days I don't want to watch my kids' lives now. Right? I mean, come on. It's just a reality. You're telling me that's my eternity? That's what somebody has to look forward to? Listen, when the angels, okay, the real angels, showed up at the empty tomb of Jesus and the women were there, do you remember what they asked the women? They said, "Why are you looking for the living among the dead? Why are you looking here for something that's alive?" People don't become angels. Why? We have a far, far greater destiny, a far, far greater future that's been planned out for us. We have something much better, a better hope that we can cling to in our lives. Why are you looking for the living among the dead? Why do you think that someone's eternity, if they know Jesus, is all about protecting people from stupid decisions and getting them parking spaces? I don't get it. So, I'm going to get emails. So, here's what we're going to do, okay? For just a minute, and I'm going to ask you to hang with me in this, okay? I don't normally preach like this, but I'm going to ask you to hang with me in this. I'm going to give you a crash course in angels and demons, okay? We're going to walk through this pretty fast, and listen, I'm going to throw a lot of scripture at you, okay? Again, I'm the type of preacher who usually, I like to try to say one or two things well rather than 10 things. You know what I mean? But today, as we talk about angels and demons, I want to compact this a little bit, and I want to give you a little bit of this crash course. And we're going to talk about from the Bible, not a Hallmark card, not The View, not a scary movie. We're going to talk about from the Bible who and what are angels and demons. And then what does this mean for you? We'll end on that. Okay, what does this mean for you? Can we do that together? Yeah. All right, let's deal with this first. Number one, what are angels? What are angels? Angels, first of all, there are a lot of things, but number one, angels are worshipers. Angels are worshipers. Hebrews 1:6 says, "And then when he presented his honored son to the world, God said, let all the angels of God worship him." Let them worship him. Similarly, real famous passage from the Bible, Revelation 5, where the writer says, "I looked and heard the voice of many angels, numbering thousands upon thousands and 10,000 times 10,000. They encircled the throne, and in a loud voice they sang, 'Worthy is the Lamb who was slain to receive power and wealth and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and praise.'" Angels are worshipers. Somebody say it with me, angels are worshipers. So many scriptures talk about how angels are these beings that sing God's praises and they bow down in reverence and awe inside of God's presence and they give glory to God. Angels are glory conduits that go up to God. You know, back in the 90s, there used to be this worship song in the church called "I Could Sing of Your Love Forever." Anybody remember that? And we used to sing that chorus forever, right? That's what we did. "I could sing of your love," and it just go on and on and on and on forever. All the OGs in the room remember that, right? That's what angels do. That is part of their existence. They were created to worship God forever, both in what they sing, but also, watch this now, in their obedience and how they fight. And how they fight. And that leads me to the next thing about angels. Angels are warriors. Somebody say it, angels are warriors. 2 Kings 19 says, "That night an angel of the Lord went out and put to death 185,000 men in the Assyrian camp." One angel, 185,000, gone. Revelation 12, it says that, and we just read this one as we opened up today. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon and his angels fought back. In Ephesians 6, Paul talks about the fact that we are in a spiritual battle, that your battles have an unseen element to them, that there's a spiritual world that is a part of our reality. And in the middle of that, the bully that you need to push back on isn't always the bully you think you need to push back on. The bully you need to push back on is the powers of darkness in this world and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms, Paul says. Angels help you do that. Angels stand with you as you do that. Angels aren't pansies, okay? They're just not. Angels are fierce. In fact, I was trying to think of a moment in the Bible this week that an angel appeared to a human being and that human being didn't wet their pants. Not a lot of them that I could find. Not any of them that I could find. When an angel shows up, I'm telling you, these beings are fierce. They are fierce. Scare the heck out of everybody when they appear in the Bible. People rarely see them, but angels go to battle with you and they go to battle for you. You have a backup that you didn't even know about. They're walking through this with you. You have a covering you didn't even know about, just like that scene we just watched from the Lord of the Rings. Angels will remind you of that because that's the other thing angels do. Angels are also messengers. Angels are messengers. Somebody say it. Angels are messengers. Judges 6 says that when the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Gideon's getting ready for battle. Gideon's getting ready to go to war in his life. And God just had an angel show up and tell him, "I'm with you. God is with you. You're a mighty warrior. We're standing together." That's what we're doing. Luke chapter 1, the narrative of the birth of Jesus. Luke says, "But the angel said to her," meaning Mary, "Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. You will be with child and give birth to a son. You're to give him the name Jesus." Angels are God's data plan, okay? They are his texting plan. They are a tool that he uses for communication with human beings. They deliver messages on behalf of God. Sometimes they're reminders, sometimes they're warnings. Most of the time, it's just a lot of comfort where the angel is just saying, "Hey, we just want you to know we've got your back. You're not alone. Don't be afraid. Be encouraged. God is with you. We are with you. And heaven is waiting to fight on your behalf." Isn't that good news? That's kind of crazy, isn't it? That's who angels are. That's who angels are. God is with you, mighty warrior. That is who angels are. So that begs the question, what do angels do then? Well, one of the things that angels do is they give you direction. They give you direction. Matthew 1, also in the birth of Jesus narrative, Matthew says, "An angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, 'Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary home as your wife, because what is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit.'" He's giving direction to Joseph. Joseph is trying to make a decision. Do I stay with Mary? Do I believe her ridiculous story? Would you believe her ridiculous story? But an angel showed up and gave Joseph some. It appeared to him at a moment of real tension and transition in his life. Numbers chapter 22 says that Balaam got up in the morning, saddled his donkey, and went with the princes of Moab. But God was very angry when he went, and the angel of the Lord, watch this, stood in the road to oppose him. Balaam was riding on his donkey, and his two servants were with him. And when the donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with a sword drawn in his hand, she turned off the road into a field, and I bet she did. Right? See, isn't that just like, that's just what God does. You're going down the wrong road, you're making the wrong choices, I'm insecure, so I'm doing crazy things. God shows up with an angel and a sword in his hand, be like, "Hey, where are you headed?" Right? That's the way God works. How's about we think about going home? Right? How's about how about we think about maybe taking the night off? Netflix sounds good tonight, don't you think? Right? That's kind of what it does. So angels show up and they redirect on our path. And part of the reason they do that is the next piece about them, is what they do. Angels will protect you from danger. They protect you from danger. Psalm 91, we just read it. For he will command his angels concerning you to what? Guard you. To guard you in all your ways. They're not here to guard you against something they're doing. They're here to guard you against yourself. Okay? And they will lift up your hands so that you will not strike your foot against the stone. At one point in Acts chapter 12, Peter is in jail. And there's a bad situation going on. We don't know how it's going to turn out. And Luke, who wrote Acts, says this, that suddenly an angel of the Lord appeared and a light shone in the cell. He struck Peter on the side and woke him up. That's so... only God, right? Only God. I'm in jail. I'm hopeless. I'm hapless. I'm feeling sorry for myself. Angel of the Lord just appears. Hey, wake up. Right? Wake up. Quick, get up, he said, and chains fell off Peter's wrist. And the angel said to him, put on your clothes and his sandals. Peter did so. Wrap your cloak around you and now follow me. And the angel told him, and then Peter came to himself and said, now I know without a doubt that the Lord sent his angel and rescued me from Herod's clutches. So angels are protectors. They are protectors. You can't always see them. But even right now, even throughout this week, you've had angels protecting you. They fight for God's people. They protect you. They're fighting for you in your battles. And they also take care of you, because that's the last thing we're going to talk about this piece. What else do angels do? Angels minister to you. They minister to you. Hebrews 1 says, are not all angels ministering spirits sent to serve those who will inherit salvation? By the way, the people who inherit salvation, who's that? That's you. That's me. Angels are ministering spirits to those people. Matthew chapter 4, it says that after Jesus has been tempted, it says that the devil left him, meaning Jesus, and behold, angels came and ministered to him. They ministered to him. The word ministered here is the word diakonio, and it means to be an attendant or to wait upon. To minister, watch this, I love this. To minister as unto a friend. As unto a friend. So, while they're fighting alongside you, and they're giving you direction, right, and they're protecting you, angels are like a friend who are ministering to you and attending to you, and they're speaking peace over you and comfort over you and joy over you and salvation over you. In fact, the same angels who attended to Jesus attend to you. That's kind of mind-blowing, isn't it? Luke 22:43, it says that an angel from heaven appeared to him, meaning Jesus. This was on his way to the cross, and strengthened him. Strengthened him. Listen, if an angel ministered to Jesus, do you think that an angel might be able to minister to you? If Jesus needs angels to come and minister to him, do you think you might need angels to come and minister to you? Right? Wouldn't it be comforting to know that you have friends that you can't see that are speaking peace over you and life over you? And when you're down and you're crying and you feel alone and you're in the back of your mind and in the depths and the basement of your heart and you don't know what's going on, that you have friends that you can't see that are speaking over you and whispering over you like, come on, you can do it. You can do it. You need to get up. Heaven is fighting for you. We are all here. We're just waiting for you to give us the go on it. You're not alone. Would you stop believing the lies? So that's a little bit about who angels are and what angels do. You exhausted yet? I am. Yeah. Well, let's keep going anyway. If we know where angels came from, and we know, kind of what they do a little bit, let's talk about the other side. Let's go to the other corner and introduce that corner, okay? I feel like that announcer in the middle of the ring before the fight. In this corner, numbering tens of thousands upon tens of thousands, angels. In this corner, boo, we don't like these people. Right? Let's talk about those people for a minute. Who is Satan and where did he come from? Satan is a fallen angel. The Bible describes him as the most beautiful of angels. He was called Lucifer, who thought that he could run the show better than God. Isaiah 14, starting in verse 12, says, how you have fallen from heaven, O morning star, son of the dawn. That's how beautiful He was. Morning star, son of the dawn. By the way, morning star is also how Pharaoh described himself as the most powerful being on earth. Okay, morning star, son of the dawn. You have been cast down to the earth. You were once laid low. You once laid low the nations. You said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit enthroned on the mount of the assembly. I will ascend above the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. Remember what we said about angels. They're conduits for God's glory. Whose glory is this one interested in? Himself. I will. Me, myself, and I will. That's the Holy Trinity I want. Me, myself, and I. Okay? So Satan is a fallen angel who was very beautiful, but fell from heaven. Satan is often described as heaven's worship leader. I'm sorry, Abby. But it's true. Over time, what happened, though, was that he was so good at it that what he ended up worshiping wasn't God. He ended up worshiping himself. And now he leads others to do the same thing through lies, deceit, and falsehood. Satan wants to destroy anything that genuinely worships God. It was the one thing he asked of Jesus. When he brought Jesus all the way up on the top of the mountain, and he's giving him the temptations, and he's going through, and Jesus is starving, he offers him bread. All kinds of stuff. The very last one, do you remember what it was? Satan said, I'll give you everything. I'll give you all these people. I'll give you this whole world. I'll walk away from all of it. I just want one thing. Do you remember what it was? I want you to kneel down and worship me. It's ego. It's pride. And a number of angels fell with Satan when he was cast out of heaven. They are called demons. What do demons do according to the Bible? Well, number one, demons try to influence people by inflicting suffering. They'll try to influence you by inflicting suffering. Matthew 17 says there's a situation where there's a demon-possessed boy, and Jesus is coming into the situation, and the dad is kind of going nuts, like, Jesus, you got to help me. And this is the account of that. It says, the dad says, Lord, have mercy on my son. He said, he has seizures and is suffering greatly. He often falls into the fire or into water. Jesus said, bring the boy here to me. Jesus rebuked the demon, and it came out of the boy, and he was healed from that moment. So the possession of that boy was resulting in the boy inflicting harm on himself in the situations that he's putting himself into. Did you know that that is what demons will do? Demons will try to influence you to put yourself in situations where you're causing harm to yourself, just like they did with that boy. They will try to get you to do to yourself what they can't get to do to you themselves. Does that make sense? Okay? They will try to get you to harm yourself in ways that they're not allowed to touch you. But they'll tempt you to do it, and the way they'll do it is inflicting suffering. And the second thing demons will do is that they will scheme to lure you away from God. That's a part of the suffering. They will scheme to lure you away from God. 1 Timothy 4 says that the Spirit clearly says that in later times, some will abandon the faith and follow what? Follow what? Deceiving spirits and things taught by demons. Now listen, I'm a public school teacher, y'all. Okay? And I'm here to tell you that if you don't think that some of the things that are being condoned and promoted and even taught in our public schools and in our public forums aren't coming directly from deceiving spirits in an effort to get people to what? Harm themselves and inflict suffering, then I don't know what you're looking at. Okay? Wokeism, pluralism, and moral relativism all have the same message, that it's cool to be anything in the world. You can identify as anything you want to. You want to identify as a cat? You go right ahead. You can identify as anything you want to, except one thing that's totally uncool: a follower of Christ. That, my friends, is spiritual warfare. It is. Okay? And the way we respond to that is key, because the tactics of demons is that demons want to paralyze you with fear. That's what they do. 2 Timothy says this, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and of a sound mind. When the Bible is talking about a spirit of fear, it doesn't just mean that, that you have a condition of fear, that I am fearful in the way that I'm approaching my battles and that kind of thing. It means that you have an enemy who wants you to believe that you have no chance of victory in your life. You're screwed. Your church is screwed. Your family is screwed. Your marriage is screwed. Any effort you make is completely screwed. You're nothing. You're nobody. You're a goon. You're a freak. You're an oaf. Demons want you to believe that you faced your bully all by yourself with no backup and no help. Nobody's coming to save you. And the way it is today is the way it's always going to be. That's what they want you to believe. Now, what does all this mean? What do we do with all this? I told you all of those things so that I could tell you this. Okay, and we're going to end it here for today. I'm going to ask Jacob to go ahead and play the pad underneath me so this sounds more spiritual than it really is. What this means is that you must be pretty important. For God to go to all this trouble to pick this big of a fight for you. It means that if you really understood the battle that you can't see all around you every single day and how hard God is fighting for you and how he wants you to push back, how he wants you to engage the battle, how much protection he has for you, how much strength he'll send to you, how deeply in his care you really are. If you really understood the reinforcements that are standing right at your side, the tens of thousands times tens of thousands that are standing at the back of you with their hand all on your back, propping you up, just waiting for you to say go in the battle. If you really understood that there are some angels with swords that'll fight for you, and there's others that'll minister to you, and there's still others that'll communicate and speak God's truth and breathe life over you over and over again. If you really understood that the battle is real and the stakes are higher than you can ever imagine, if you really understood that fighting the battles in your life, kicking the addiction, breaking the destructive family pattern, fighting harder for your marriage, loving your kids through complicated times, if you really understood how not alone you are in the middle of the fight and how all of heaven stands at the back of you just waiting for you to say, let's do it. If you got that, then maybe you might push back on the bully and fight harder against the very things that you came here today burdened by, that you have no idea what to do with. For some of us, the battle is a physical one. For some of us, it's a mental one. For some of us, it's relational. For others, it's just emotional. And we're battling against our own wiring sometimes, it feels like. And I know that in the middle of all of that, we start not only worrying about the battles that God has called us to, we start worrying about the battles that have already been won and that God has taken care of. That's why Jesus said, why are you worried about what you're going to wear, what you're going to eat? You don't get to, like birds get what they need. Why do you think I'm not going to take care of you? How about we focus on the big stuff? How about you save your energy in your anxiety and you save your perspective? Take it off all that. What if you put it onto me and we started doing battles that really matter? Stuff that we really need to get to work on and to push through in the middle of. What if you really believed that you're not alone? That what you're experiencing is not unique. You haven't done something bad. You don't deserve it. It's happening because you are deeply loved, highly favored, greatly blessed, and totally righteous as a child of the King. Your Father has drawn the battle lines, and He's said, it's time for you to push back. It's time for you to push back. So start pushing. You don't have to be afraid anymore. Now, I'm out of time here for today, but I need you to understand this. We've now talked about the fact that the battle is real. And we know why it's happening to us and why this war is something that we're in. And now we've introduced the fighters in each corner in the heavenly realms that are in the middle of this with us, and that we're in the battle with them, and it's all going on, and it's all just a big rumble in the middle of the cage match that we've got going on. We've done all of those things. And now, for the next 2 weeks, okay, let's get ready to rumble. Okay? That's where we're going with this. We know the battle is real. We know who we are in it, and we know what we're up against. Come back next week, and let's start learning how to fight. How to fight. Jesus, would you walk with us through our battles? Help us to claim victories where we've seen only defeat. Help us to see your presence where we can't see the way forward. God, it says in your word that your word is a light unto our path. And God, we don't need to see all the way through the battle. We just need to see the next step. So would you help us to take that next step? And once we do, to trust that the light travels with us. And that as we move forward together, that you're going to keep shedding light on where we need to go next. God, would you send your angels to minister, even in this room, even right now? Would you send your angels to fight for us, protect us, guide us, nurture us? God, we each come here facing battles that maybe the person next to us doesn't even know that we're fighting, but we want to trust them to you today. That in your presence and in your name and for your glory, we will know victory after victory after victory. We will walk in your grace. We will know your truth. And we will see your promises come to pass in our lives. We love you and we praise you even now for the work that you're doing and the victory you've already won. We pray these things in your name. Amen.